So I'm sure I'm not the only one who grew up with parents that had like strict rules or chores lists. Like for example, right when you walk in the door of my house, we have this giant like Hobby Lobby like calligraphy poster that has your 7 Ps. Prior proper planning prevents piss poor performance. My parents are really big on that. And it's something, I've always known when I was little, but this quote, Mario Puzo says, "Great men are not born great, they grow great." And I kind of took this in perspective as you aren't really born the person that you become. You kind of, you're born and then you grow up to be kind of what you surround yourself with. Like not just men, but like just anyone in general, how, the people you surround yourself with in school and, extracurricular activities and how you grew up with your parents kind of show like your growth and how you are and how like similar you are to your parents or, whoever raised you or who you surrounded yourself with. Like for example, I remember growing up and my friends would always be like, "Oh yeah, like it's 11 o'clock, like let's go hang out." And I was like, "No, I can't drive past 11 o'clock, I can't go hang out." And I remember just kind of seeing different ways that my friends, at a time when I had some friends that maybe weren't going down the right path and how, I didn't really want to lead into their footsteps, but kind of just made me think about how important it is to really think about like, where you started and how like you should change like your growth of the life of the path that you're taking. And I just remember there were times when, my friends, or just people I was surrounded with would just kind of be like, "Well, it doesn't matter, like my parents won't know." And I was like, "You're not gonna tell your parents? Like your parents will have you on like location?" Like I just didn't understand that. But when I especially when I entered college, like at graduating high school, when I got a lot more like independence, I kind of was just like, well, if I kind of continue this path of like growth that my parents have shown me or like trust, that I will be given a lot more respect from them and that it'll kind of just make me grow as a person and not necessarily go against them. So overall, I think that men are not born great, they grow great, kind of showing that you're kind of the person who you develop as you are with what you surround yourself with. Thank you.
Well, I thought you started very effectively with the story about having the rules and the chores and that sort of thing, and then the list, the 7 Ps that you talked about coming home and seeing every day. And I thought, okay, this is pretty solid. And then you tell us what the quote is. And I'm going, okay, this is very good. You're going in the right direction, and your thesis is solid on that. It doesn't develop quite as much as it should. To me, it sounded like you almost had a preview when you said, well, it depends on, your family or whoever raised you. It depends on your friends. It depends on things that you're doing. I'm like, okay, that's potentially a structure. So you've got one family reference already that you use as your attention device. What's another family reference that you could put in that first point and talk about that? And then your friends, you make a vague reference about your friends, but it's really still about your family, how they're different in what they expected of you than your friends' families were, or what their relationship was with their families. And I'm thinking, well, don't you have an example of somebody that influenced you either in a positive or a negative way? Think of that person and how they helped make you who you are, and tell us a little bit about them and how they influenced you. That seemed like it was a natural. And then, what you do, that's about as far as you go with it. You say, hey, what you do. And I'm thinking, well, were you on a team in high school? Do you have a craft or a vocation that you're interested in? What's your major? What's your career? How anything like that would give you something a little bit more to talk about and illustrate your point pretty well. So it's like you've got everything right there to make this work really well, and it just stays a little bit out of reach. You needed a little bit more content on those things. The first one, like I said, I thought was pretty solid, but the other ones, there's not really as much there as there ought to be. And I think, imposing more structure on it than you imposed. I think I'm giving you some credit for that, and it should be, I think it should have been right there. Presentation things, your voice is very good. You project well, there's a lot of energy there, you're fairly fluent. I wouldn't say that you were rushing, but maybe it's a little bit quick, but it wasn't noticeable. It didn't feel to me like you were in a hurry to be finished. It just felt like you had a rush of ideas that you were talking about. Your facial expressions are very animated. The eye contact is a little iffy. I mean, you look up at people, but it's really scattered, and it seems furtive at times. Remember that when we look at those pictures, it's kind of the averted gaze. You're over there, you're over there, you're up there, you're down there a little bit, and it's not really pausing to integrate yourself with each person in the presentation. You know, I think it's a good idea. I said this to somebody the other day. I said, if you could spend a few seconds with every person in the audience, and an audience this size, you're doing fine. I didn't get the impression that you spent any time with any individual person, that it was all just kind of, I'm looking out in the direction of the audience, and I think that that's a little bit disengaging. The summary was fine. All right, thank you. Oh, come on. Kimberly, come get a topic, and we'll have you do your second speech. You can send...
I don't choose a second topic from the same paper?
No,
Oh.
you get different topics. And send Gerardo in.